Hollow Man opens with Dr. Sebastian Kane, who is a brilliant, but slightly megalomaniacal molecular biologist, and is working on an invisibility serum for the US military, as well as a serum that will return the subject back to visibility. He works tirelessly to create a successful serum, even working on simulations from home, while also spying on his hot neighbor across his window. Sebastian has been attempting to perfect the formula for the last 4 years, and he conducts his experiments on animals kept inside a top-secret hidden military lab accessible only to him and his staff. His current project is reversing the invisibility effect on his test subject, a female gorilla named Isabel. What the team discovered is that phase-shifting a living organism into invisibility was easy to achieve, but phasing them back to visibility has proven very difficult. Working late one night, on reconfiguring the molecular model of the irradiated protein that will restore Isabel to visibility, he gets an epiphany and solves the problem. He immediately reports his success to the top members of his staff and calls his ex-girlfriend Dr. Linda McKay, who is also a scientist on his team. Although work on the serum occupies nearly all of his waking hours, Sebastian becomes obsessed with his ex-girlfriend Dr. Linda. Unbeknownst to him, she has become involved with Dr. Matt Kensington, another member of their research group. Sebastian arrives at his highly secure facility. At the same time, Matt goes to Isabel's cage, who is disturbingly aggressive. Once the gorilla calms down, he unlocks the cage, but gets quickly bitten as Isabel runs away. Matt follows in pursuit, but bumps into Sebastian. The two take tranquilizer guns and chase after the gorilla, while also betting money on who gets to shoot her first. The two corner Isabel and Sebastian gets the shot in. Suddenly, Sarah Kennedy, a veterinarian, arrives and chews Sebastian out for planning to use the reverse serum on Isabel before testing it first. They make it to the lab and strap Isabel on the table, and we meet the other members of the team, Carter Abbey, and technicians Frank Chase and Janice Walton. They inject the gorilla with the reverse serum, which ends up working, and Isabel becomes completely visible. In celebration, the team goes out for a fancy dinner, where Sebastian makes a toast to the greatest research group in the world. To Sebastian, however, it feels like the end, as reversion was the last big breakthrough of their research. Linda goes to talk with Sebastian at the balcony, who is getting reminiscent of their time together and goes in for a kiss, but Linda rejects his advances. Instead of reporting his success to the military, Sebastian inexplicably lies to the oversight committee, including his old teacher Dr. Howard Kramer, and talks Linda and Matt and convinces them by saying the government would have taken over the project if they told them, but now they can move on to phase 3 and do a human test, which will far exceed expectations and win them the Nobel Prize. Matt and Linda are hesitant, but end up agreeing to lie to the other 4 team members, saying that Kramer and the board have given them the go-ahead for human testing. The subject, Sebastian himself. The doctors prepare and strap Sebastian to the table. They inject the serum into his veins, and as his skin starts to disintegrate, and despite the painful shift to transparency, in the end, the procedure is successful. After being unconscious for about 17 hours due to the shock, Sebastian wakes up in pain, and recoiling from the ambient light, realizing that he can see through his eyelids. He then conducts some clinical tests on himself and remains in the facility under observation. When everyone leaves, Sarah remains to watch over Sebastian, but briefly falls asleep. When Sebastian comes in and unbuttons her shirt, and fondles her breasts, she wakes up and suspects Sebastian, but doesn't have any solid proof. He then attempts to make a move on Linda again, but she continues to reject him. 86 hours after being invisible, Sebastian is back on the table, but this time to test the reverse serum. At first he seemed to return back to normal, but the reversion quickly backfires and fails and almost kills him. The researchers construct a latex mask for Sebastian to wear around the lab, crudely approximating a human appearance. During this time, Matt attempts computer simulations in hopes to make Sebastian visible again. However, the simulation fails. Over the next several days, isolation and virtual imprisonment in the lab begin to wear on Sebastian's mental health. Disobeying Carter and his own rules, he leaves the lab and goes to his apartment to grab some books, CDs and Twinkies to take back to the lab. He then sees his hot neighbor coming home and changing clothes, and as temptation gets the better of him, he removes his mask and clothing to become invisible and rings the bell to his neighbor's apartment. When his neighbor goes to the hallway to check, he sneaks inside. He starts to mess with her by moving the mirror while she brushes her hair, and then pushes her forcefully on the bed, followed by an obvious act of cruelty. Linda shows up at Sebastian's apartment and finds the mask and clothes, but no Sebastian. As he finishes his evil deed to his neighbor, Sebastian spots Linda in his apartment across the window. He returns to the lab, just as the others were planning to go after him. Linda warns him that if he leaves again, she and Matt will tell Dr. Kramer about everything. Ignoring their threat, he assembles a device that runs a video loop of his heat signature in his quarters. The repeating image fools Frank into believing that Sebastian is still in the lab, when, in fact, he is out spying on Linda. Sebastian sees Matt and Linda together about to make love and smashes their bedroom window out of jealousy. The two call Frank, who tells them that Sebastian is still in bed. Meanwhile, an enraged Sebastian returns to the lab, frustrated and angered at the thought of Linda and Matt together. Unable to stand the annoying barking of an invisible dog, Sebastian approaches the dog, reassuring it that he means it no harm, then kills it with his bare hands by brutally smashing it against the cage wall. The team soon discover that they have been watching a recording and that Sebastian has been leaving the lab without their knowledge. Linda and Matt decide to inform the committee and go to Dr. Kramer's house to tell him about everything, including the secret experiment on Sebastian. Dr. Kramer is disappointed, and tells them that they are fired from the project. Sebastian has followed them and is listening to every word. Dr. Kramer then attempts to call the military to inform them about Sebastian, but Sebastian has cut the phone line and lures Kramer outside, where he then drowns him in his own swimming pool. The next day, Sebastian waits until all of the team is in the lab and then disables the phones and all of the security codes, except his own. He removes his clothing and latex mask and begins to hunt them all down. Janice falls behind while the team searches for Sebastian. He finds and strangles her with an N4 line and stuffs her body in a locker. After they find Janet's body, Linda, Sarah, and Frank hide in the lab and try and restore their access codes, while Matt and Carter take tranquilizer guns and go hunt for Sebastian in the empty hallways, using their thermographic imaging goggles. Matt mistakes a heat signature from a steam vent as Sebastian and shoots at it, and when Matt turns around, Carter gets yanked into the air by Sebastian, who is on top of a pipe. Before Matt can land a shot, Sebastian throws Carter down a steel mat, taunts him and then almost kills him, but Linda is able to intervene and drag Matt to safety. Sarah and Frank find the barely conscious and severely injured Carter. Sarah runs off to get blood for a transfusion, despite Frank's wishes. Sensing Sebastian nearby, she splashes the blood all over the room, waiting for him to walk on it and reveal his location. However, Sebastian tackles her, overpowers her and shoots her with her own tranquilizer gun, then breaks her neck. Linda and Matt find Frank tending to a dying Carter. Carter bleeds to death and the three go to find Sarah. They find her dead in the walk-in freezer, but it's a trap, as Sebastian impales and kills Frank behind with a crowbar. He then stabs Matt with the hook end in his lower chest. Sebastian locks Linda and Matt in the freezer, turns the temperature control all the way down and leaves them to freeze to death. Sebastian puts on his latex mask and clothing, spending much time to ensure he looks near human. Meanwhile, Linda dresses Matt's wound with duct tape and then works out a way to escape from the freezer. Linda constructs an electromagnet using a defibrillator and other lab equipment, and uses it to open the door. She lights a fire to warm Matt and gathers the parts needed for a flamethrower. In the lab, Sebastian has been making nitroglycerin to destroy the place and cover up the murders of the team. He puts the nitro in a centrifuge, starts a timer and destroys the keyboard, so it can't be stopped. Just as he is entering the elevator to leave, Linda appears and fires her crude blowtorch at him. His latex mask and clothes begin to burn away. Sebastian barely manages to escape the flames. Linda uses the flamethrower to start the ceiling sprinklers, to reveal his location. Sebastian appears behind her and the two fight. Just as she is about to die, Matt appears and hits Sebastian with the crowbar. For some reason, he decides not to finish the job and Sebastian recovers and seizes the crowbar, but while wet, he swings the crowbar and connects with a fuse box, electrocuting himself. As the electricity courses through his body, Sebastian is rendered partially visible. His muscles, bones, and organs can be seen, but his skin and what's left of his hair remain invisible. Linda and Matt find the nitro about to explode, and decide to abandon the lab, climbing up the elevator shaft. The lab explodes, filling the shaft with fire. The two are almost out when Sebastian appears. He drags Linda down onto the top of the elevator below them, and kisses her one last time for old time's sake, before she finally kills him by grabbing the elevator cable and knocking the car loose, sending Sebastian plummeting into the inferno below. The movie ends with Linda and Matt emerging from the burning laboratory, as paramedics whisk them away in an ambulance. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thanks and see you again soon.